Hi guys, what's going on? And welcome back to another episode of Conqueror's Blade. So, today, Imperial Spear Guard and Spear Sergeants. So, they're two units that I have looked at previously, but they aren't really two units I've necessarily directly contrasted against each other. And it is kind of one of those questions that comes up a fair bit. Which is better? Which one of the two should I go for? Well, I've got them both completely max leveled, elite at a max level. They both go up to level 18, and then they max out. And I still use both of them because they're both really nice units. And they both have pretty different characteristics. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to touch on in this video, is having a look at each of them, one of them individually, having some battles, one battle with each, and we'll kind of see how we get on, and maybe you'll get a bit of an idea of whether you're going to be wanting to go for Spear Sergeants, or whether you're going to be wanting to go for sort of Imperial Spear Guard. So, let's just briefly break down what are the main differences between the two of them. The first one I did with these Spear Sergeants, really nice unit. They really are one of my favourite units. Not to mention the fact I'm lucky enough to have one of these Templar skins, and it just suits the unit so perfectly. They just look utterly badass. But that aside, what makes these quite different? Well, you're basically getting a higher damage potential, higher mobility in exchange for defense. So they have reasonable defensive stats. I've got a piercing defense of 740 and then a slashing of 600. Actually, really not that bad when you combine that with a total health of just over 10,000. It means they are still quite a sturdy unit. But they aren't as sturdy as something like the Imperial Spear Guard. Just a couple of 100 points less. But as those defensive attributes start to stack up a little bit on the Imperial Spear Guard, it actually makes quite a big difference. That 600 to 800 is quite a jump, and it is a noticeable difference. But in return, of course, you get much higher offensive stats. One, the piercing AP is really quite nice, 1400. It will deal with most things. It's going to struggle a bit against things like Reapers, but against most sort of mid-tier, sort of lower high tier units, heroic era stuff, it's going to be penetrating just fine. And it means you're going to be applying a damage of sort of between 1000 and 1500, depending if it crits or not. And that's pretty respectable. It means you can actually go toe-to-toe with some pretty high-tier units, and particularly when you get to, things you just want to kill quickly. If you come across a unit of archers or something like that, you get these guys in your cover commander mode, they absolutely munch through them super, super fast because, they either, if they don't one-hit, then they certainly two-hit enemies. And it kind of means that you can be really quite offensive with them and quite aggressive. But of course, you lose out a little bit from the mobility. But they get the speed. And this is one of the biggest differences between the Spear Sergeants and the Imperial Spear Guard. And it's one that I don't think people fully appreciate enough. The speed is quite nice on the Spear Sergeants, 5.2. Nothing special, but they're a fastish unit. They run around like normal. You want to change from the B point to the A point, or, suddenly the C point is getting threatened at the other end of the map and you need to get back to help your team, then these guys will get back with you. The Imperial Spear Guard will still be sort of stood around picking their noses on the other side of the battlefield because they're super slow. So if we go with these guys, you can see they have a base speed of 4. It is noticeable. Really it is. So bear in mind, if you're quite a mobile player, I'd say I move around quite a lot in a map, trying to move to do different points to try and assist the team in different areas where I think they're weakest, then the speed is something I really notice on these Imperial Spearmen. And it's something that really drives me up the wall, which is one of the reasons I personally kind of prefer the Spear Sergeants. But on the flip, you get the better defensive stats. Now look at that piercing defense, almost 900. I have got a doctrine on them, a piercing defense doctrine though. And bearing in mind I'm running both of these with spear doctrines, giving them that 360 health buff. And the slashing, 735, it's just that bit higher. It just makes them that much more resilient. They just take that little bit less damage. They hold up quite a bit better. They also get a much bigger shield, and I think they get, it's not a stat we can actually see, but they get a much higher sort of amount of blocking resist. They can absorb a lot more blocking damage before they drop their shields. And that's something that sort of comes into play a bit as well. But on the flip side, you're losing out on the damage. So rather than 1400, you're just over 1000, and then your damage is just that bit less, and it's noticeable. Obviously, the damage actually values isn't that less, but it's probably the piercing damage that means that it doesn't really apply in quite the same way. You're seeing generally, I find you're sort of doing 700, 800 for a hit, unless you're hitting something like peasants, in which case you do 1200, something like that. So then that's fine. But against most mid-tier and above units, you'll see your damage drops off quite a bit compared to the Spear Sergeants. But you last that much longer. You also get the benefit of a self-heal. every 60 seconds you can heal a pretty reasonable amount of health. You know, and it means you can stay in combat that much longer because you can pop that heal, and then even as they're fighting, they're starting to heal themselves. So they can stay in battle quite a long time. Yeah, you see they get the heavy shields buff. So that means that's kind of like the way they get all that extra block from. They tend to hold the line really quite well. The ultimate sort of defensive unit. And that is the main differences between the two. You're trading speed and damage for defense, basically, are kind of your flips. And I think when you're considering which of the two you might want to go for, it's also worth considering what hero class you are. I think for me as a poleaxe player, I can get away with spear sergeants a lot more because I can use my sort of CC and control to limit the amount of damage they can take a little bit. I think if you're, you know, an archer or a range player, you know, a musket, something like that, then I think Imperial Spearmen start to come into their own more because you don't have to micro them so much. You know, they're just there to protect you as the hero, and I think they do that very well. Both units get a cover commander, and they get a similar selection of formation, so they play very similarly in that way. So anyway, I've definitely rambled on for long enough. Wow, we're over 6 minutes already. Okay, let's get into a battle. We'll start with these Imperial Spearmen, and let's take a bit of a look at these guys in some combat. So we're starting off with the more heavily armoured Imperial Spear Guard. You can see pretty much how sluggish they are right from the start. It's like, come on, get into position. As we kind of run up the stairs. We're really early on in the siege in this battle at the moment, and I'm kind of thinking they've just got their siege tower into place, and I'm kind of thinking if I want to sort of commit to this as an engagement. So I start off by lining myself off of this tower. I thought it might give me a bit of tread protection as well, which is kind of something I was thinking about. And then I'm sort of thinking, I didn't know if I wanted to get stuck into this fight in the back here. I could push, but then if a lot of stuff comes up the siege tower behind, or a unit of Reapers or something like that, then I'd be really in trouble. But anyway, my inhibitions get overcome and I decide, you know, I'll sod it, let's just go for it. So we're just trying to start to engage a little bit. I'm trying to sort of thinking about shifting myself around slightly. So rather than fighting them dead to the left, I kind of thought if I shift around slightly, there's a lot more allied support. And particularly as some of the stuff's already there. You know, and we just kill off a few bits as it comes up the ladder. Just a few easy kills early on. Mix of units and stuff coming up. And then we start to get some enemy Imperial Spear Guard coming up. And this whole engagement isn't particularly a great example of necessarily good gameplay or anything, but just how tough this unit is. So, you know, we're getting into a pretty prolonged fight against quite a few heroes, quite a few archers firing in. You know, a fairly decent fight. We've got some good allied support, which obviously helps. But there's quite a lot of stuff stacking up. Look how much stuff is starting to stack up against me now. You know, there were 3 or 4 heroes with full stack units all pushing against my Imperial Spear Guard. And you can look at the health of the unit down the bottom corner. I knocked myself here on briefly a bit earlier, so I'm trying to keep the unit going. We are obviously starting to lose units and losing health, but look how long we are holding. And I'm trying to sort of bring the unit back. I'm trying to sort of stagger my retreat, and ultimately I decide, right, it's time to go. And we actually get out with a really good chunk of the unit, and we held, you know, 4 or 5 full stack units there for, you know, for a good 20 seconds, 30 seconds, something like that. No other unit would be able to really do that. And be able to come out with only 8 unit losses. It's still 26 stack units, still not a full strength unit, but that's as many models as most units actually have from the start. So they actually seem to survive up really quite well. So then I go on and I fall back to the supply point. I wanted to get these guys healed up. You know, think about sort of recovering a little bit, get them back up to health, because then I'm going to have a full heals, 26 stack unit, and that's kind of what I was thinking about. So I send them back off to the supply point, and then I just go off as my hero to have a little bit of a look what's going on. The enemy's obviously actually finished clearing out that top point of the gateway now. It's actually starting to push down the staircase, but they don't really follow up the push too hard as some of my units retreat. I just go and stand there to make sure they don't kill too many of those Imperial Spear Guard as they sort of pull back to safety. And then, you know, my unit's starting to get back up to health now. And I noticed B is starting to get captured, so I think, right, well, I'm going to go there, I'm going to start that. I know they're starting to capture A as well, but there was quite a bit of allied stuff there, so I thought that was going to be stopped fairly easily. So this is where the speed really is annoying. So I've called the unit, they're on the way to me, and there's quite a bit of stuff here. Probably too much for me to deal with in time, you know, but, you know, I'll be getting to the point now where if I got my Spear Sergeants, they would have been arriving now, and yet my Imperial Spear Guard are still coming up the stairs, still trundling over. You know, this is why mobility is key, because there's a situation that is developing fast and I want my unit now. But anyway, they finally get here. I line them off. I didn't know what was going to push it. It would actually just turn out to be a couple of serfs or woodcutters or whatever they are. So it really wasn't a problem. They just flattened themselves against the wall. and it gives me an opportunity to start to get back on the offensive. This poor short sword player kind of got a bit caught out of position. Annoyingly, the unit didn't drag over me, even though they're in cover commander, but I go around and I push him back in, and he just gets enveloped by the unit and killed. And we push on to what's left of these spear sergeants, as they just get cut down because they really weren't positioned in the right direction. So, all in all, gone pretty well. I feel like we provided a decent amount of resistance at the start of the map, holding the people back on the wall. You've got to see an idea of how strong these units are, even against multiple heroes and, a really good quantity of enemy units sort of pushing against them. They do hold really well, so long as they're friendly. As soon as they get attacked in the back, it all goes to pieces. So then there's this guy tried to run off, trying to get the kill on him, but unfortunately, no cigar. As you see here, as soon as you hit spears in the back, you get full critical damage on them. I was hitting them for sort of 3,000 times 4,000. So you have to be facing frontally, and that's true for both Spear Sergeant and Imperial Spear Guard. It makes a real big difference. So I'm then sort of umming and ahhing about where I want to go, kind of having a bit of a look round. Obviously we've lost the B point by this point, so they can capture the base. So we've got to be a little bit careful to at least hold this alley here to stop them from getting round. But at the same time, we still hold the supply point, and we still have quite a lot of stuff down here. So I'm kind of thinking, well, I don't want to retreat back to base quite yet. We still hold the A point. If we can, resist them longer, then that's certainly to our benefit. So I'm sort of looking around, thinking what I want to do. And then you can see I sort of start to notice there's a bit of stuff kicking over on the B point, I think. So I was thinking about maybe looking over that way. And then I was thinking, well, maybe we could recapture the top of the gateway. If they're mostly pushing through the base of the gateway, maybe we can get up here. I don't know if anything, maybe clear out some of their archers. But I kind of get up here and think, oh, I'm not so sure about this. But I call my unit over all the same. Just feeling a bit cocky by this point. Because they are such a good, strong unit. So I thought, oh, well, you never know. Maybe it's worth it. So we go over. And I personally just start to throw myself into this fight a little bit. We're against another unit of Imperial Spear Guard. And we have some allied Imperial Spear Guard here as well. So I start to push the unit in. You see their damage. You can see their damage ticks against other units, other defensive units. Not really very high. We're hitting for a spot against those squires, 700, 800, something like that. They were spear sergeants, so we're hitting much higher. So it does make a real difference. But in this fight, the casualties start to stack up, and I just kind of felt in the end that our units started to get diminished. Our allies are starting to sort of pull back a little bit as well. I kind of felt, well, that's not worth it. Let's take our opportunity to get out. And they do seem to disengage quite nicely, these guys. Yeah, we take a few casualties doing it. But for the engagement, we definitely secured more kills. And, well, yes, the unit has lost a chunk of its health. Obviously, I could just pull back to the supply point. Or at least that was my plan. And this is where things start to go a little bit array. Because the enemies are there at the supply point. I'm thinking, crap. But then there is this unit of archers here. And this is a time I really wish I had spear sergeants. Because I'm now still waiting for my unit. Look at my health is diminishing. I know I'm getting excessively aggressive, but I lost sort of 5 or 6 seconds there where I didn't have a unit. And this is where I wish the unit would be killing these archers quicker. It's far too slow, and ultimately it cost me my life. The unit does go on to kill the archers sort of without me, but they are quite a bit slow. If I'd had spear sergeants in that situation, I think they would have been with me quicker, and they would have killed the unit quicker. And I think I might have got away with that and actually stayed alive. I should have probably hung back a little bit more, but just archers, just like kill, want to kill them. So it didn't quite pan out for me. But it gives you a bit of an idea of what's in Imperial Spear Guard are like. A really nice, tough defensive unit, but just a little bit sluggish. So, on to the old Spear Sergeants. Just on Valley Fortress, siege has not long started. Spear towers, or maybe even the siege towers. I've actually got into place, and I'm just calling my unit over to me. I was looking on that right siege tower, but there seemed to be an awful lot of rather mean-looking units at the top of that, so I didn't quite fancy it. So then as we come on, I feel you have to be a bit more careful with these Spear Sergeants. They are a softer unit, and that really does feel like that. So it makes me a bit more hesitant about throwing them into too many situations, because they get overwhelmed pretty easily. So you can kind of see that. I'm thinking here, well, I saw 2 or 3 units of Reapers in the centre, and I was nervous that if I just stacked my unit up, particularly on this fairly narrow corridor, there was a pretty decent chance I'm just going to get flattened by Reapers. So that's why I'm being a bit hesitant about pushing in. But we do start to get our team pushing on the other side of them, the other side pushing in. So I'm thinking, well, I've really got to go, haven't I? I feel obliged to, since they're starting to push. And in the end, we'll get this stuff pushing up the ladder, or even the staircase. So these are just the premium mercenary units, I think. So we just go to them. They cut down pretty quickly. You see the sort of damage hits we're getting compared to the Imperial Spear Sergeants are pretty decent, and we munched through this unit pretty easily. And since I was here, I thought, well, let's just clear this staircase. You know, it stops anybody getting fresh reinforcements up and coming around behind us. So let's just clear these guys out. There's a few stragglers down there as well. And then I was turn around, back up the staircase. We need the A point. It's got to be the main objective. And here's some of the dreaded Reapers. We cut through the Reapers fairly well, particularly from the back. You see the sort of critical hits we're getting, sort of heading towards 1,000. And, you know, we kill these Reapers pretty nicely, particularly in cover commander like this, because it means they get such an amount of stabs per unit. Obviously, you could put them in like a line or a Shiltrin formation here, but I think in this situation where I've got to clear back, the cover commander just works so much better because they're so tightly packed and they basically all stab together. So it means the damage potential, I find, gets quite a bit higher. And we push on and clear, frankly, quite a decent selection of units. You know, killed quite a few, or at least applied quite a bit of damage to enemy Reapers there. Cleared the point, and we get the A point. You know, that's exactly kind of what we wanted. I was quite pleased with that. You know, getting this point can be quite hard on some games, so it's nice to kind of get that momentum going. Good job, we had a decent team as well. And then, right, we're capturing the A point, and I'm thinking, well, those men-at-arms at the back look quite a tempting target, don't they? A friendly Shawsword does a really nice job knocking them down, and yeah, it's just 3 kills, isn't it, really? Look at them being poor guys, just get sandwiched into a corner. We get the kill. Testament to kind of how much damage more these do than the Imperial Spear Guard. You'll see we get quite a few hero kills with these guys. Once a hero gets inside a unit of Imperial Spear Sergeants, the damage they do is just intense. They just munch heroes super fast, and you'll kind of see that. It makes them really nice. It does mean you do, you know, you can kill heroes really quite easily. Works particularly well with the Poleaxe's ultimate because I can lock heroes down so easily. So yeah, it is really nice hero killer. So we start to push down the staircase. They work really well in this sort of situation, Spear Sergeants, because I'm not going to get overwhelmed. I'm pretty confident that, come what may, we're going to win this staircase fight. And that's where I find they work better than Imperial Spear Guard, because I can be more aggressive, more quickly, I can get the kills quicker and push on. Imperial Spear Sergeants, I think, work much better when the odds are against you. You know, when you're on a tough staircase fight and you're waiting for your team to get there to reinforce you, then Imperial Spear Sergeants, I think, start to work really well because their defensive stats and much slower, much sluggish, you know, but hold the line type abilities work much better. So anyway, we push around onto the supply point. The unit's a little bit diminished, so I kind of wanted to get healed up. I'd only lost 1 unit at this point. You know, we've got 40 odd kills or something, so I thought, well, they're due a little bit of health, so we get them over to the supply point much quicker. You know, they're there already. They're the same speed as a hero, walk speed basically. So yeah, in position, quite pleased with that. You know, Imperial Spear Guard still wouldn't have made it to the supply point because they'd be that much slower. And then it's on to the B point. And this is kind of where we see a little bit some of the weaknesses of Spear Sergeants, at least in my eyes, is when things don't quite go according to plan and you get caught a bit out of position, they start to suffer casualties quite a lot quicker. So I was thinking, well, we've got quite a lot of stuff coming really, and we're pushing pretty hard, so I started to get a bit aggressive. Just a pole musket just felt the poleaxe wrath. And then I thought, well, let's just get on to these archers, you know, everyone does a few archer kills. But it doesn't really go well. The hero commanding them does a good job. I mean, the poor Dual Blades doesn't do such a good job and gets caught in the middle. But they managed to pull those archers out of position, and you see they've just set themselves up just off, and they're just peppering me with arrows, and I'm out of position here. I could have pushed them, maybe I should have pushed them, but I'm on a 3rd health myself as a hero, and there's still quite a lot of stuff on that supply point, and I was kind of nervous about just chasing those archers down, particularly if I thought they were going to run again, and you know, I thought I might get caught in an endless chase. So I pull back, but it costs me quite a few units in range damage. But we do at least get onto the point, and you'll see the sort of damage. We get lightly armoured units like these Pike Militia when we're getting onto the side. You know, we absolutely munch through them. But in the just sort of general throng, you know, a little bit of melee damage, but largely just some arrows kicking around. It took quite a lot of unit loss. You know, we're down to a 20 stack man unit now. And it's quite a shame to lose so many, and I think if I had been with Imperial Spear Guards, I think they would have probably not lost any, or at least not very many models in a fight like that, because they'd have just held up that much better to the range damage. And I think that's kind of where Spear Sergeants end up falling down a little bit short in that sort of engagement. But anyway, we get them to the supply point. We've still hardly exactly done badly with them so far. I'm pretty pleased with their performance. SP point captured, and we've now got to sort of over 6.5 minutes to capture the C point. I'm kind of thinking about what I want to do, you know, kind of next. Getting the unit back up to health. Hopefully the team's starting to get ready, and obviously we want to make a bit of a push against the C point. Really quite hard on this map, I find. Valley Fortress to get up through the sea point. Once you get the momentum going, it starts to work well, but it can be quite hard to get that initial push, particularly with this staircase, particularly if the enemy uses cav on that staircase or puts archers or ranged at the top. It can be quite hard to do, to get that kind of momentum going. So anyway, so I'm sort of thinking around, what do I want to do? I'm going to have a look at this ladder. I thought maybe if there was a lot of easy enemies, you can deploy trebuchets when you're on the ladder. So if you can climb almost to the top but not quite get off, you can actually get some nice treb angling. But there wasn't really a lot here, and actually a bit of a push going on by allied troops. I could maybe have thought about pushing my spear sergeants up the ladders now. I mean, it was a tempting thought I was very close to. But then I just felt there's kind of too much enemy stuff coming across. Although maybe in hindsight, given that they're not particularly high tier units, I should have done. That would have been the right move. I think I actually managed to get knocked back off, which wasn't quite what I had in mind. But by that point, I noticed on my mini-map, a lot of enemies are pushing just up the stairs. So I just grab a bit of a heal for myself, get myself back up to full health, and then grab the spear sergeants, and we are on and off and up the stairs. That's what I mean about getting the momentum going. Once you get sort of going like that, then it becomes a lot easier to capture this point. And I'm happy to assist to that and kind of push around and try and get the momentum going all the better. Poor Bo just didn't have a lot of fun there. Initially lost by a poleaxe ult, and then a unit of spear sergeants turns up just to finish her off. So we're on to the point. Really, the enemy got driven off there pretty quickly. I should probably have pushed my spear sergeants up the ladders. I think that would have been worthwhile. But so often, pushing up ladders can be such a bad idea because the unit just gets caught on the top and gets butchered. And once you're climbing, that's it, you're there. So we stack here, we set ourselves up. I should probably have taken them out of cover commander mode and just put them into line mode there, because I think they'd have been able to, raise their shields a bit better and protect themselves a little bit more, because we do take a chunk of range damage from that. You see, the health bar at the bottom, a few of the units took a little bit of damage. It looks like some enemies were pushing down the staircase, but didn't get there in time to steal any kills. And then go on to get to the supply point, and very handily, the halberds retreat in front of us. So I thought that was quite nice. And again, the mobility of the spear sergeants allow us to grab a couple of kills on the back of them. Imperial Spear Guard would have been nowhere near on scene, by that time. So again, one of the benefits of spear sergeants. But pull back to grab a little bit of a heal before we make the final push onto the enemy base. And then, you really, whenever, particularly for this final base, you really have two choices: it's left or right. I normally tend to go right because I find it tends to be much less contested and is normally a pretty clear way around. But as we do it, I just felt sorry for our teammates who were fighting down this alley, so I thought, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. As I got involved here, I was thinking, oh dear, maybe I've gone a bit deep here. I might have overcommitted, and yeah, I think we slightly did. But they've given really an admirable performance. They hold up pretty well considering, remember we've got a full unit of enemy Imperial Arquebusiers behind them shooting into me. And if you actually look at my hero health, it diminishes rapidly when I start to get hit. Ooh, a few big hits. And so I have to roll out. And with 8 units left, I just set them to attack and I run away. And unfortunately, the unit does meet its demise, but it gets a few more kills. And all in all, 77 kills from one unit. Not too bad. So hopefully that gives a bit of an idea of Spear Sergeants versus Imperial Spear Guard. It's mobility and offense versus much better defensive stats, basically. That's kind of your flip side, and that's kind of the choice that goes with it. I find them to be both really nice units. I use them both in different situations. The lack of mobility of the Imperial Spear Guard does annoy me sometimes, so I probably slightly err towards Spear Sergeants. But once you get into a bad situation, I much rather have those Imperial Spear Guard because they do just hold up so much better. But anyway, hopefully it's been an enjoyable video. It's certainly been a bit of a long one. If it has, do let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Which ones do you prefer? Subscribe to the channel, of course, for a load more Conqueror's Blade content. And I shall see you guys all on the next video.